Donald Trump focusing today on President Biden's comment last night where he appeared to refer to the former president's supporters as garbage. Of course, the White House has gone out of their way to clarify that, to say that he was speaking about a singular person, referring to that comedian on Sunday. The president himself even posting about this. You can see Donald Trump tonight. He was in Battleground, Wisconsin, in a Trump campaign branded garbage truck as he wore an orange vest.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden. Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself if he knows what he's even doing. And she should be ashamed because she shouldn't let him do it. She's the vice president, but I assume she's acting as the president. She should never have let that happen. I hope you enjoyed this garbage truck.
Now, that comment came a few hours after we heard from Vice President Harris herself on this. People were wondering what she would have to say about that comment last night. Listen to her in her own words on it this morning.
I think that the president has explained what he meant, but I've said it earlier. I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. And that, I've made that clear throughout my career, including my speech last night before I think this all happened, which is I intend to be a president for all Americans, and including those who may not vote for me in this election.
So this garbage truck thing is not the first time that Donald Trump, a former president, but also former reality TV star, has produced events to drive a message in a way that's hard to look away from. That's the point, right? But here's the thing. These events are also designed to get us to look away from what we shouldn't ignore, to distract from what Trump is saying about what happens after polls close on Tuesday.
Could you imagine any circumstances under which you would be defeated but not say that the election was stolen?
If it was a corrupt election, that could happen. But so far, we're doing pretty well. They found a lot of smaller things in Pennsylvania, as you know, and I think they've been corrupted and taken care of. They were corrupt. They were corrupted, but I think it's been taken care of.
Either way, will you accept the results of the election?
Yeah, sure. If it's a fair election.
If it's a fair election, he says. So, does he think it's going to be a fair election?
What worries you the most?
Cheating.
Which one, though? Which state?
No, all of them. I mean, they cheat. All of them.
All of them, he says. All of them. So when you're out on the trail covering a political campaign, I've done a number of them, the job is to report what the campaign is doing. Sure, that's the part that they want you to see. But it's also to make sure you're reporting what they don't want you to cover or pay attention to, not to miss the forest for the trees. And 5 days out, the campaigning is frenetic. But we may look back and say that this was the calm before the storm. Joining us now to discuss, Molly Ball, senior political correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, Stephen Collinson, CNN politics senior reporter, Brad Woodhouse, senior advisor to the Democratic National Committee, and Matt Gorman, former senior advisor to Tim Scott's presidential campaign. Welcome to all of you. Wonderful to have you this morning. Stephen Collinson, you often paint these sort of big sweeping pictures for us every day. I still don't totally know how you do it, but all of our readers very much enjoy it. When you look at this, I mean, I think the moments that really stood out to me in both this event he did at McDonald's and this garbage truck show that there is still this question and this persistent situation where he is calling the election results into question. Obviously, the campaign wants to focus on what Biden had said, but as we are barreling toward this election, how do you see these 5 days in this context?
I think you put your finger on it right there. The narrative that was developing about this week was all about the darkest closing argument of any modern presidential campaign, that wild rally. Whatever the president meant, he gave Trump a huge break. That photo op allowed Trump to walk from his personal Boeing 757 to a garbage truck, take up all the oxygen.
That's a contrast.
And nobody is talking about that rally, which was hurting Trump among Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania. Now we seem to be moving inexorably to the stage where now in our elections we have the pre-vote, we have election day, and now it seems we have this prolonged period afterwards questioning the validity of the election. Trump seems to be laying the groundwork rhetorically for what looks like a pretty sophisticated legal effort under the hood here to challenge this election, if necessary?
First of all, I was kind of looking at Brad during the Mitt Romney thing because we both
that's
worked
a flashback.
I know we both worked in 2012, and I mean I was when the Biden garbage comments broke, it was a little text chain among a couple of Romney folks, and they're like, "You remember that night?" Like,
Oh yeah, I
and it was
remember.
like,
I wrote the lead for the AP.
exactly, and we were all sitting around being like, what's the context? Can we spin that? Like we like there's no real way. Can we rewind it? Like there is no good answer. And you know the White House tried it might. And look, you know, Stephen has a point. I think we were barely into this week with Trump and the Trump campaign on defense, and then quickly the Biden campaign gave him something to go on offense. And I think more acutely, instead of just rhetoric, what they've done really well is they've been funny and creative with things that can get them visually back on offense. And look, I'll step back for a minute too. I think this is one of the things also where if Kamala Harris doesn't win, I think it's a little bit more indicative of her campaign where she has been less likely to do that funny or creative or even slightly risky move, right? If she worked at McDonald's, she should have beaten Trump to the McDonald's a month ago, right? On that sort of thing. And I think also like do the Rogan thing, do those little things that can extend you out there just a bit, crystallize something visually in their mind, get people talking about it.
Well, look, I don't think the McDonald's thing did anything for Donald Trump, and I don't think riding around in a garbage truck does anything for Donald Trump, or wearing an orange vest on stage that is only supplanted by the orange on his face. But let me say this. So I do think that the Biden faux controversy is just points out what you were saying, which is we need to focus on what is going on in this campaign. The Harris campaign has a GOTV effort. And this is a margin of error race. We believe it'll be a margin of effort race, turning out the vote in every single state. The Trump campaign and Trump's allies have a voter suppression strategy, and that is to go into every court. They're doing it in Pennsylvania. They were successful with this effort, or Republicans were successful with this effort in Virginia. They're trying to knock out votes, not turn out votes. That is their strategy in this election.
Well, look, I think at this point, people understand that sowing doubt about elections is just something Donald Trump does. And it's not based on anything true or real or substantive or anything that's actually happening. It's something he's going to say no matter what is out there. And the same thing with these lawsuits. Many of them are not based on anything actually happening. They are just an attempt to seed this narrative. And so hopefully after, after 3 successive elections in which he has made these false claims, people understand that it is a rhetorical strategy, not a real phenomenon, not something based in fact.
Even if it is a rhetorical strategy, I mean, we've seen in the polling that it has made people less likely to trust our elections. I mean, don't our elections fall apart in the absence of trust?
Absolutely, and it's a real problem for that reason, and a lot of Republicans do believe it. Now, the majority of Americans believe accurately that our elections are secure. But it is a real problem. I think in terms of the photo ops and the stunts, you see that these campaigns have a different theory about who the undecided voters are at this point, right? The Trump camp's theory is that the voters they need to reach are the ones who are marginally interested in politics and will only pay attention if something funny or weird happens. So they see Donald Trump on a garbage truck and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. The Harris campaign's theory is different. Their theory is that the undecided voters who are still out there are conservative-leaning, college-educated suburbanites who want the president to be a serious figure. So she's not doing these kind of stunts because she wants to be seen as a serious figure. She wants to convince people that she's presidential. She wants to do things like the speech that I attended on the Ellipse earlier this week, where she is trying to strike that tone and have that stature and that gravitas, because the undecided voters they are trying to reach and get off the fence at this point are the ones who want to see a president behaving in that traditional presidential manner.
It's a really interesting way to think about it. Molly, you also had your most recent story, it was a couple days ago now for the Journal. The headline is, America is having a panic attack over the election. I have to say the anecdata in my own family and friends really does actually support this thesis, but what are you saying? Oh, look at this. There are not enough gummies I can take to soothe the angst.
Yeah, well,
what type of gummies are we talking about here?
I think you know. And it was interesting, there's data to support this. It's not just anecdotal. In our Wall Street Journal poll that was released last week, 87% of voters, so this is across the spectrum, said that they believe the country will sustain serious damage if their candidate loses. Only 10% said no to that question. So people really do profoundly feel the stakes of this election sort of weighing on them. And I asked a lot of people attending political events, but also just rank and file voters at an early voting center outside Atlanta. How are you going to deal with this angst that you're feeling? Or how are you going to get through the next couple of weeks, particularly if you've already voted and there's nothing else you can do? A consistent answer that I repeatedly got was drugs or alcohol. So take that as you will. I'm just reporting here, but that is the answer that I got from numerous voters. Scotch, marijuana, gummies.
Maybe we should have Bloody Marys instead of coffee.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.